So, if you've invested any time into Taoist meditations and really any kind of system of internal alchemy, be it like the yoga systems which have the chakras, or the Taoist systems which have the dantians and the meridians, you'll find that there are similarities between these systems, essentially any spiritual systems in general. And of course, people like to draw parallels between the essentially Western physical alchemy, the idea of the cauldron, the maybe boiling flask and the liquid in the bottom of it, boiling up and down and all these kinds of things, to the inside of the body. Now, one issue people seem to have is that they don't understand that these internal alchemy systems are as real as they are spiritual, to say that we're working with physical, tangible things. At least that's my belief. That's my experience also, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Essentially, that internal alchemy is physical, and you can actually study this within yourself and understand it. It's not just a spiritual thing. Of course, everything physical has a spiritual, it's like the different sides of a coin, which we'll go into. Right, so we start here with the idea of dan tien. Now, you've probably heard the word dan tien. Essentially, you got the word for dan, meaning elixir in this specific context. I know it doesn't say elixir here, but it is used for the word elixir. And tien is field or farm, or basically area of elixir. And you've got your 3 dantians, and I'm just going to talk about to concoct pills of immortality. Yeah, you got that stuff, folk remedies, etc. We're going to talk about the lower dantian. And here we go, nei dan, Taoist internal alchemy. Nei dan. So if we look up dantian, lower dantian on the Brave browser search engine, we find all of these pictures. Hopefully I have safe search on. Here, of course, is a nice little picture, and you can see it is this orangey kind of center here. Now, it's usually represented as an orange center, orange or golden, but the kind of golden of the sun, which is really an orange, because it is where the quote-unquote golden elixir forms. Of course, it's debated by some people whether it's in the navel or whether it's in the lower area. Here we have a nice little diagram. This is one that's nice because it is simplified anatomy. While it, you might think it's kind of silly. Here's another. Now this one draws it. You can see here the navel line, and you can see here the kind of intersecting of the legs and the torso, and the genital region here, the pubic region above. So really, where is it anatomically? Everyone wants to have their own idea. We can look up sacral chakra. Again, sacral chakra. I'm not really finding any. We have a lady showing, with it here. Oh yeah, funny little thing about Wikipedia and all their donation asking. Go look up the salaries of how much people on Wikipedia make. The leaders, they make a lot of money, I'll put it that way, so they don't need any. Anyway, here we are. The sacral deals when you got a little moon there, and it's orangey yellow like the sun, and why do Indian people have orange in like everywhere? Could it be to do with mercury oxide, or is it to do with this? Something, a bit of both. Deals with unconscious emotion. It's above the Muladhara, closely related to that. And again, if you like the yogic systems, what is the Muladhara? What is it physically? The sacral is above the Muladhara. Physically, you have an object above another object. What is it? Think. And here we go, it deals with sexual desire, and you have to face sexual temptation, etc., etc. And here we see essentially it's the lunar part at the bottom, and then the water part. And what does it look like in the body? To me, it looks like essentially the lunar part is like the prostate, is the sexual region, and the blue part is the bladder. That's what I would say. Of course, maybe you could just say it's the full moon, but it is what it is. It's associated with the testes and ovaries, production of sex steroid hormones, as you can see here. It says 2 fingers width above the Muladhara chakra, and they say the Muladhara is essentially the perineal region, so the prostate of the man. Of course, the bowels can be relating to it. Here we have the thing on Dantian, loosely translated as elixir field or sea of chi. Again, sea of chi, golden elixir, center, golden center, all this kind of stuff. Here we go. Also called the golden stove, where we purify, I hope you can see this, where the process of developing the elixir by refining and purifying essence, which is jing, into vitality or chi around the heart begins. So what does that really mean? Because again, I'm saying jing is a real thing, and in this context, chi is a real thing. We have the idea of chi being kind of like force, so to speak, like force of nature and all this stuff. In this context of internal alchemy, the chi kind of represents blood, vaguely, and the shen represents brain fluids, and the jing, sometimes they have, I don't know if the word qing is different or if it's meaning jing, but they use the word qing to say like the sexual fluids. Technically, the raw definition, of course, if you know the word in Japanese, I think it's sei, it basically means semen or ovum, so in a physical sense at least. Otherwise it means essence and essentially your spiritual essence, which I guess, yeah. But what about the jing? Where is this? Here we go. The jing, this can be refined by heating in these cauldrons into more rarefied states such as chi, which is blah, 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 blah. So essentially, if you know about this already, the idea is to build jing in the dantian. Now, jing is essence, specifically kidney essence. So the lower dantian stores the kidney essence, which is called jing. The interesting thing with the whole kidneys, of course, the kidneys are part of the, what you would say, the urinary and broadly the urinary genital system, which is the bladder, the kidneys, depending on if you're a man or a woman, which genitals, external and internal. By that I mean, like, for women, the more internal is the womb, and for men it's like, the prostate and such. It's all related to this system, right? And yeah, one important thing, jing should not be confused with the concept of nei jing, which is power, basically internal power, or jing of classic. Yes, that's a good thing to remember. Make sure to study your Chinese. Now, if you have good jing, what actually happens is you become more orangey yellow. And I don't mean like jaundicey. You'll notice when you have lots of jing, you become orange. Your skin does. Why are Chinese people so orangey? I don't know, maybe it's because they do this practice. It could be another reason, of course, but that's one interesting thing. Why they look gold. Yeah, basically, good jing is bones, hair, nails, strength of the kidneys and adrenals, strong legs, strong pelvic region, and such. Okay, so this is essentially it's like the foundational energy of life. Here we go, it's consumed by stress, illness, blah, blah, blah. And they have this thing about prenatal, postnatal jing. I don't understand that shit enough. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. Okay, so one thing on kidney issues is, I'll get me notes 1 second. Here we go. Now, if you know about the idea of Mopai, which was, everyone loves Mopai or they hate it. I think it's great. I wish I want to get that book that's in Chinese, that's handwritten, that the Mopai people, they read. Hopefully one day we can get that and study from it. Anyway, now Jim, I don't know his full name, was one of the students of John Chang, who was the Mopai master. And if you don't know Mopai, it's a Chinese system of cultivation which was supposedly taken from the original immortals. There was the guy who made Tai Chi Chuan and Bodhidharma. Those two, apparently they became immortal and mastered the systems and gave it on. And then the Chinese moved over to Indonesia, and then we have John Chang, who lives in Indonesia in the Chinese community, and he teaches this martial art, internal cultivation thing. Now, here's a quote. Jim died of kidney issues and cancer. Another quote. John had apparently been suffering from kidney problems. Now, I found this from Daobum's side. It's a terrible place, the Daobums. People who just have no life spend too much time there talking about nothing. But these quotes came from that, if you wanted to know. And another quote is, here we go, 7.6% of people attempting level 3, because there's levels in Mopai, have died. The people who have died have been injured, have suffered from strokes, heart attacks, and kidney failure. And supposedly people piss blood after doing the cord cutting. Now, the cord cutting is level 3. I think level 1 is you fill the dantian. Level 2 is you compress it, I think. And there's something to do with the quote-unquote yin center, because you're building up yang energy in the dantian. You see, the dantian cultivation, there's this idea of building up yang qi, which is just heat. If you really want to know what it is, it's just heat in the quote-unquote the dantian, which, if you haven't caught on what the dantian is by now. But anyway, let's get on to it. So at level 3 or maybe 4, I don't know, there's like stages of the levels, right? You cut the cords, and the cords are, so apparently you can move the dantian in like an X shape, I think. So yeah, again, physical thing. Like if it's a spiritual thing, it shouldn't be that hard to move, right? And you shouldn't have to quote unquote cut cords. I think the cords, the tendons, now here we go. Level 3 is a very difficult path. It requires at least 3 continuous hours of training a day, perhaps more. In level 3 we make the dantian mobile. It can move, in other words. Here we go. Level 3 dantian is forced to move around and gets cut off from it. When we're finished with level 3, we send our yang, which is the heat, down to the hui yin, which is a perineal point. There it gathers as much yin as we have sent down yang. So obviously, in my definition, this is the prostate, right? You're gathering sexual energy. After time, maybe even months, years, blah, 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 yin and yang rise together. So they squeeze those two areas together. Here we go. The practitioner begins to cut the cords that hold the dantian in place. The successful student is then able to free his dantian from its immobile state and move it at will. The phenomenon can be felt by casual observers who place their hand over the practitioner's abdomen. From what I'm told, it feels like a hard ball inside the abdomen region that moves independently. Once the practitioner has done this, he moves the now mobile dantian down to the energy center located at the perineum, hui yin, obviously, thus beginning the process of permanently fusing yin and yang. The force generated by this coupling is explosive and can result in instant death. From what I understand, here we go. The power generated is on par with actual lightning. Thus, the freezing lightning path. Again, I don't recommend you do this. This is kind of like self-destructive cultivation. You can do other stuff other ways. And for the people who really want superpowers and all that crap, just go practice that. The only thing stopping you from levitating is that you don't practice levitation. As for blood from the penis after completing, it's quoted from down. Some people did, some others didn't. Yeah, so now your bladder has, this is Da Vinci in his anatomy. Your bladder has tendons, the front, back, left, and right of it. I like this picture from Da Vinci because it shows this nice little fascinating orb here with some connected things. I don't know if they're tendons or veins or whatever. And when I saw this, and we also have the kidneys here, I was like, oh, that's kind of fascinating. I think the dantian is just the bladder. Because if it's a physical object that stores the kidney essence, and it's all related to the color of gold and amber, and this idea of ambrosia and nectar. Of course, nectar could also mean, you know, like sexual fluids as well. And then you store heat, the yang energy, in the sea of qi, you know, and below it is the yin center, which would be for men the prostate, for women the womb. And then we go into things like, you know, the womb, the amniotic fluid essentially being urine. It kind of makes sense. Now you might think, well, isn't it bad to hold in your piss, and like, isn't it meant to like get rid of impurities? And we'll get into that. Alright, so before I go and explain the whole of internal cultivation and such, let's kind of have some background. So I've thought this for the fact that the lower dantian is probably the bladder for a while. And look, I might be wrong. I'm really just putting this out here as an idea. Maybe you've got similar experiences. Maybe you can figure something out with this. You know, I'm not saying it's set in stone, but let's just try to work with it. I've thought this for a while because I would notice when I don't piss, my body heals. It's so stupid, but it's like, I mean, you know, if you practice internal alchemy, internal cultivation, and you focus on the body all day, you just figure this stuff out. I noticed I would just heal quicker. Of course, if you take a look at the sacral, the definition of sacral chakra, it's the chakra of healing. Right? The spot that heals the body, rejuvenates it. If you look at copper relates to this area. You know, what does copper do? It rejuvenates and heals, right? It fertilizes. It's related to water, to like salty water, like the idea of Venus and all this stuff. That's essentially what we're talking about. So, I would notice if I piss. See, I do a lot of physical work, do a lot of exercise, which means I need to like heal a lot. You know, I usually need to eat a lot of protein. I would notice if I piss, my body I would kind of feel a bit limp and exhausted, like, you know, lower energy, and my kidneys would feel a bit hollow, and they would start producing urine essentially. See, the kidneys help to produce urine, and they also help to produce like sexual fluids, right? So if you lose those through too much sex, you will feel your kidneys generating. Slight correction. The sexual centers generate the sexual fluids, but they seem to draw from the bladder and the kidney. And this is the idea of the kidneys generating qi, okay? And I would notice that not until the bladder is filled to a certain point. So this is where, you know, if you have the question of like, oh, you're just not meant to piss. No, you're not meant, you're not meant to just like hold your piss in and explode, and like, I don't think that's healthy, right? It's not good to do. But what I find is when you learn to balance the internal elements and strengthen these areas, you don't really need to piss, right? It just doesn't really happen anymore. And if you suffer from like a weak bladder, like that's an issue, right? That's a problem that's showing you have weak kidneys and weak bladder, and you probably don't have very strong regeneration, and maybe your body's kind of falling apart, right? Basically, as I said, I would just notice that my kidneys would want to, like, and you might think, well, it's just the kidneys are producing more urine because it's like you empty the tank and now it's going to, purify the blood again. But it's like, why would I feel so, like, all these ideas of low jing and weak, whatever this is, like, I would feel that. I would kind of feel, like weak energy, like low vitality. I wouldn't heal quite as well, like poor digestion, all these kinds of things. That would be talked about. Why would I feel that? Of course, I did what I, had to, which is experiment. What happens if I just don't piss? Or if you really, because here's the thing, you can build up a lot of, like, fluid, and also I'd be thirsty all the time. This is a really, this is an annoying thing. I'd just be always thirsty and like dehydrated, right? I would notice that. As I said, I experimented, and of course, if it's like, because you can build up like what they call turbid chi. Why they use the word turbid? Like, what? That's, they use the word turbid for urine, like white urine. So if you have too much, I think what they call yin jing, which is too much fluid, you got to release some of it. And then the yang jing is the heat. And there's this idea of the kidneys. One kidney kind of produces a liquid, the other kidney produces a heat, right? Why they use these words of steaming up the jing to back to the kidneys and then back to the heart to produce chi? Why do they use these words of all about water and liquid? I mean, it's pretty obvious now to me, at least. Like, go back and read, the books you used to read. Or like the ancient passages, I don't know, if you've read a bunch of ancient passages like I have about this stuff, go read them now with this information and just, like, have it with this idea, and you'll be like, oh, okay, that makes complete sense. Alright, whatever, let's draw some pictures and try to figure some stuff out, and then give some exercises. Okay, so here is we'll draw a side view and make it bigger. Right, that's a side view of a person. So here we have the heart. Here would be like the bladder, the sexual center, kind of down there, the bowel. This intestines, the brain. Good enough, right? And then we'll draw a front on view. Okay, bladder there, intestines, so it's kind of more like that, intestines, heart, brain, sexual center, good enough for anatomy, right? Okay, so basically this region here, your intestines and your lungs are like what you might think energy gatherers, right? Thin that down. So the way you get energy primarily is, number one, through breathing, number two, through eating. Now, you can gain energy through any center. You can get it through, like, literally just standing. You can get it through sexual practices. You can get it through talking to people, through viewing things, listening to stuff. You just receive energy, like, passively through EMF. But primarily it's through eating and breathing. And either you can send the energy up or down, which is what we think of as yang cultivation or spiritual, or yin, which is physical, right? Positive or negative. And the negative senses is the bladder, bowel, and the sexual regions. So again, male or female, depends what you got. Because these store this, the bladder, of course, is the water center. The bowel is the earth center. These are the two physical elements in the body, right? And what happens is when you are relaxing, if you just relax, you feel the weight go down, right, to the ground, to your feet, to your butt, whatever if you're laying or something, to your back, and you feel that downward force. What that does is it condenses and consolidates. Condense / consolidate, right? So it's like from these ones, it goes down, down, down. And what happens first, it's like level 1 is the bladder fills and the kidneys connect right to here. These get stimulated, the kidneys get stimulated, and then it fills the bladder to a certain extent. This is what happens when you sleep, by the way. So this is all related to sleep. The bladder seems to fill. Once the bladder fills to a certain point, what happens is that the sexual center starts to fill. So for men, it is essentially, just say if you come, you've emptied all of that, like essentially mucus, I guess, or fluid or whatever, from your reservoirs, which is, I guess, in front of the bowel and behind the bladder, because you've got, the like tubes which store a bunch of stuff, and I'm not going to go into anatomy on that, you can look it up, but that's what I can feel that fills up energetically and physically. Then finally the last one, so you got 1, 2, 3, then the bowel fills, and this is how you get into like. So, I'm not going to tell you to hold in your shit. That's not. I do think the bowel is it's like at least once a day you got to kind of get things out, right? We can probably all agree on that. But who knows? Maybe there's some crazy people out there that just, pure earth cultivation. If you really want to go into it, maybe that's kind of when you get into the deep sleep, the deep restoration, the deep, the bone healing, type of sleep. So why if you don't sleep enough, you don't really get that. But that's what I felt happens, is that your energy when you sleep or when you relax or when you do some kind of yin cultivation training or whatever, it goes down, and it goes from that way, from the bladder more or less fills and stabilizes and, does that, and then it goes to the sexual center, and then it goes to the bowels. I guess if you look into the idea of like the bowels produce B vitamins, like B12 vitamins, and why is it that everything fermented, which fermented stuff is kind of like artificial crap, like you look at miso, which is wheat and soybean that turns into this brown, kind of like fermented, thick smelling, essentially it's like artificial crap. It's the best way to put all natural, fermented stuff, and it's full of B vitamins. Apparently that's how your bowels extract that. So what I think is happening is that your bowels are like producing their own like chemicals and hormones and vitamins, and I don't know, processing the rest of your food or something, and that's and it doesn't really happen until you've got all these things going on, whatever. Also the idea of foundation, if you're into, the idea of cultivating a foundation or whatever, it would be related to the bowels and to the vaguely also the sexual region. So why is it that you don't again, if you look into the Mopai, they say you don't come, you're not allowed to come if you're a guy. If you're a woman, it's a little more, you probably got a little more option. And of course, I don't recommend you don't come at all, right? But I do recommend you figure it out and you know how much you can. As I said, when you release this, it draws on the bladder energy. It draws on the kidneys and the bladder to rejuvenate sexual energy, right? So you probably want to learn how to do it without nutting, at least not all the time. You want to like ration when you come. You're going to have to figure that out. Also, if you're a woman, you're going to have to figure that out as well. Just through feeling like, when can you release and hold? And that's why when women, menstruate, which also is a purging function. It's why if they take birth control too much, they start getting womb issues, cancer, like ovary issues and this kind of stuff, because they're not releasing. But when they do release, they release a lot of energy and they feel kind of moody, and basically they have to regenerate this. Also, why do women who are pregnant need to piss a lot? The womb is like right here. It puts pressure on the bladder. But also potentially the idea of pregnancy is a Jing tax on women. It's the same way that sex is a Jing tax on men, and that's why I say women got to regenerate a little bit after pregnancy. But also while they're pregnant, who knows? Maybe the kidney energy and the bladder. Maybe the urine is being basically used for, as I said, the amniotic fluid. There's probably something to look into there for that. Of course, who's willing to experiment. But going on, then we go to yang cultivation. Now, if you read about Kundalini and Shen, the idea of the Jing Qi and the Shen, which is brain fluid in a physical form, or brain energy. As I said, not everything's physical, but not everything's energetic. It's a bit of both. And once you realize that this stuff has a physical counterpart, and everything energetic should have some kind of physical counterpart, you start realizing what things actually are. Okay, so essentially what can also happen is when you're stimulated. What happens when you're stimulated? You're sweating, you're releasing all this heat. That is your lower energies. Why do people stink of ammonia? If you look at what is protein? Protein comes from amino acids, which comes from nitrogen. Ammonia is a nitrogen source. It's basically like liquid nitrogen. Well, it's like a liquid biological nitrogen, right? And of course, you make ammonia from piss. And if you hold your piss in too much, it turns to ammonia, which I guess is kind of relating to how this stuff works. You'll notice when you're in a very stimulated state that your energy rises up and you don't need a piss, because it's all being transmuted upwards. And the kidneys, you can feel the kidneys are the up and the down. The up and the down places, like energetically, you'll feel them pull up and down and pressurize up and down and like produce an upwards and downwards flow in the body. And this is essentially what's happening. Is it's like the bladder, again, water and fire. Why is it the kan and li, or the water and fire, the tiger and the dragon, all this kinds of stuff, right? The turtle and the phoenix. That's what this stuff, I believe, is. What is happening when you're stimulated is that your everything is transmuting upwards, right? So essentially, everything is all of your fluids and substances and, whatever it happens to be. So what the Kundalini people, the Taoists, all these kind of spiritual cultivators, they want to send everything up to the brain. Some of them send it back down with like the microcosmic orbit, but they're sending it to, a lot of them are trying to send it all up to the brain. That's why they, reject sex, they reject the material world, they reject family usually. society, because all, you know, these things, these lower centers represent, you know, materialism, pleasure, etc., etc. And they just want mental energy up here, and what they gain is superior thought, superior senses, superior eyes, and imaginary ability, and the ability to start perceiving energy. Like, you'll literally start seeing glow, you know, stuff glowing. If you just sit outside in the woods meditating for, you know, like days, you will start to see the trees glow and the animals glow, and the energy and all this, and you'll feel it and all this stuff. So it gets you closer. So the higher you go, the more closer you get in touch with energy, right? And the lower you go, you get more in touch with matter. So you have to, and you can do a bit of both, right? You can do some of both. You have to ask yourself, you know, what do you want? Because down here, the idea of hell, you know, which is Baal, of course, is materialism, is wealth, is rulership, is land. And you can think family is kind of in the middle, society is in the middle. You know, the idea of being like a merchant or a peasant or something that lives in the world is in the middle, and at the top, and then the farmer, of course, is the bottom, and the craftsman is fairly lower, and the warrior is lower around here, and the above is like the priest and the ruler and the magician and scientist and all these kinds of, you know, mental quality things, right? Which is what spirituality is trying to develop and gain. And the only reason they develop the tien, the lower tien, is to have a resource to then sublimate and steam and boil up to the top. You don't have to do that if you don't want. There's a different form of cultivation, which is someone who basically still has sex. They have to do yin cultivation. They have to learn how to generate sexual energy. And they generate the sexual energy, and then they can, you know, push it up if they want, or you can push it down. Again, how do you gain material power, physical power? If you want that, you work more with the bowel and the bone and the feet and the root, the base of the body. What you want is, you know, I'm just telling you the cheat code, so to speak, because everything you get in your external life is related to your internal body. You're like attracting it based on what you know, internally are powerful in. Anyway, I hope you kind of get that. And then, of course, so basically, you know, the idea is you first gather energy in the dantian, or the bladder, essentially what I'm thinking is, and then, you know, some people circulate it through the meridians and all that stuff, and you can do that if you want, and but I'm kind of telling you how to make it go lower. Right, so let's do the meditations and learn about this. Okay. The practical part. So just relax a little bit. You can close your eyes if you need to, if you need more focus. Otherwise, you can just keep them open. I'm not going to draw anything on the board. First, I want you to focus on your kidneys, which is around the mid-back. If you feel like your belly button's kind of behind there, about a little above, around the back side of the body. And you can also feel your lateral muscles that kind of taps you into it. Feel those and stimulate them. This is like I believe this is the idea of yuan qi, or original energy. This is where it kind of comes from. If you have a lot of ginseng stimulates the kidneys. You know, coffee, why do people want coffee? Because it stimulates the kidneys. And then you need a pee a lot because you're drinking, you know, from a lot of coffee, right? That's what people do, because it's the kidneys producing all that energy, which is why people get energized from coffee. And then I want you to kind of feel into the bladder now, and see if you can feel a connection between the kidneys and the bladder. If you can feel the connecting like cables, and if there's any energetic connection or movements or fluids or anything you can feel. And now just focus on the bladder, which, you know, the lower belly, essentially. Focus on the lower belly, and feel it out, and just feel, you know, what is there. And you might feel your pelvis like opening up, or the hips are kind of opening. Again, this is the area of, it can be the area of shame. If you have a lot of sexual trauma or shame or tension, this is the area that you need to open up. If you've got urinary issues, like bladder issues or anything, again, this is the area. And you want to, you know, I'm just giving you a quick like rundown, but you want to focus on this area for a while and try to like quite literally generate urine. Just sit there and notice that when you focus on the bladder, you will generate urine. And if you have too much of it, like it hurts, you know, don't hurt yourself. One thing you can do is, if you have too much water in you, just piss halfway, or like a quarter or a third or whatever, you know, whatever you feel, and feel the difference. So you want to go off and do that, you know, when you do have a full bladder, just do it like halfway and feel what it's like. Oh, what's that feel like? Or do it a quarter, or do it fully, and notice how then the body stimulates the kidneys to producing urine, right? But also what you want to do, you know, focus on the bladder, build it up, and you feel it's warm. It starts to get warm there, right? If you tense and you focus too strongly and intensely, what happens is that you start to heat the liquids there, right? And it'll go upwards. And that's if you want to do that, if you want to build up, you know, the upward energy, you can do that. But if you just want to, and if you want to build up lots of fluid, you do the opposite of excessively relaxing, excessively, you know, expanding and opening, which kind of happens also during like relaxing times and nighttime and all that. So what you want to do is, in your own time, just spend a day where you hold in more urine, right? So you're holding it and you feel what it's like. Not so much that it's painful, as I said, you don't want to hold enough that it's like hurting you or anything, but just feel what it does to the body, like what it does to the regeneration. Because I notice my body heals very quickly. If I'm doing a lot of exercise, I've got more strength. I regenerate and heal very quickly, which is why I thought it was so beneficial. Now, the next thing, if you want to focus on the internal sexual area. For women, it's the womb, which is kind of, is it below or like in front of, or actually I think it's behind the bladder. Let me look up it. Right, so the bladder is actually below the womb. I think the root center for women is the womb. I'm not really, you know, besides the bowel, of course, but I think it could be that one. I don't know. Try it out, figure it out. For men, it's the prostate, which is kind of that whole area. Don't just hyper focus on the prostate, but like below the bladder. Try to feel that point below the bladder and notice. And women, again, you will notice there is a center especially when the bladder is like, you know, got a lot of energy and it's kind of filled. There is another center that is being put pressure on. For men, you know, you will feel the prostate is being put pressure on, especially if you have issues with the prostate. You can also feel the penis, and then go inwards to the root of it. right? Or like between the penis and like, you know, your asshole essentially. You'll feel pressure there, and this kind of, you know, focusing there and putting the pressure on it allows it to heal and to clean out. And, you know, that's what we're doing. Focusing on it, allows it to clean itself, essentially, to purify. You know, we use these words like energetically purify, which first does energetically purify, but then it physically purifies. Similar for women, you know, women have a lot of issues with their womb. You know, if you just say if a lot of women put pressure on, if you put pressure just above the pubic region and, you know, a decent amount below the belly, and that hurts. You know, a lot of women are probably in pain if they do that. A lot of men as well. You know, you can push the prostate doing that, because a lot of people have, you know, this area is weak and it's full of toxins, essentially. So this is how we clear it out. This is also how you generate these, you know, sexual energy. And now the last one is to go to the bowel, which is, you know, it's behind all this area. You pretty much just focus on your asshole and kind of go up a bit. And you've got to be careful focusing on either the bowel, the ass, or your asshole, which are both a very powerful point to, you know, tonify. But you have to be careful if focusing on this point out in society, because it stimulates people's darkness. And they'll start to go a little crazy and a little bit. It's actually an interesting experiment. Go outside among people, focus on your asshole, and just keep holding it there and just see how people start going crazy. It's really weird. But it gets them into their traumas. Anyway, this is how you clear out the darkest, deepest kind of, and this is how you gather earth energy, is focusing on the bowel. Is that Saturnian? It's the same thing. If you hold lead and you focus on the bowel, that's the same thing. It's the same kind of energetic thing. The bladder is, if you hold copper, you can actually do that. You hold some copper and you'll focus and you'll stimulate that. I think the sexual centers is silver. I'm not sure. I don't have any silver. I should probably buy a coin so I can tell you. But yeah, just focus on the bowel. And again, this is the center, you know, the idea of carbon and being detoxifying, your black crystals detoxifying. This is the ultimate detoxification point. And I'm not going to tell you to hold in your shit or anything. Like, as I said, like, that's a little bit, I haven't figured that out. You know, I will tell you to try to see what it's like to hold your piss in, essentially. You know, to an extent, to not just to hurting yourself, or not enough that you're doing that, because I've tried that for like 4 years. I've known this, and it's just, I just haven't, you know, you probably tell why I haven't wanted to make a video on it, because it sounds fucking crazy, but it works. So shit, I don't know. Anyway, realistically, if you want to figure this meditation out and figure out the idea of how, you know, the food goes and it produces, you know, the essence of the urine and then the sexual fluid and then it goes to the bowel, you're going to have to spend like hours feeling that out in meditation, because it takes forever to produce these fluids. Doing it, you know, a little 10-minute meditation, like a little 5-minute meditation that we've done, you might feel a bit of stimulation and figure out some stuff. But basically what I'm telling you is this stuff, like, it's like if you come, right, it's going to take you could you could like focus on the sexual area for like an hour, and then you'd like produce enough like gel, so enough goo to like go, you know, to like, if you came again, you'd make a good amount. You know, it's not just like, you're not just coming and it's just like a little, you know, or I'm sure most the guys out there have known, you know, if you just come that many times, eventually nothing comes out, right? So if you want to learn how to control that, and make a lot of that, you know, besides taking, I don't know, sunflower lecithin or damiana or whatever things are stimulated. This is kind of how you physically, you stimulate that without a medicine, or this is what the medicine is doing, right? Similarly with the bladder, take herbs which stimulate qing, or stimulate, you know, the kidneys and like the qi building herbs, right? You'll notice they stimulate the kidneys, and then you get more piss, essentially. Like, I know it sounds so stupid and so, I don't know, simple, but look, either way, otherwise we're going to have to stop using words like lower dan tien and all this stuff and just understand things as the organs. And as I said, you know, copper relates to the bladder, lead relates to the bowels, silver probably relates to the generative regions, you know, iron relates to the intestines, right? I think I'll have to work more with iron and, you know, the other ones, and tin, maybe, I don't know, where's tin? Is that the mind? I don't know. That's another. Actually, tin gives me digestive issues. I don't know what it is. So maybe it's a digestion. Though I always thought Jupiter was like the head. Though Jupiter is the father, so could that also be the generative areas? I don't know. I'll figure that one out in another video. Geez, what do I even say? How do I even summarize this? You probably figure out why I didn't want to make this video. Like, I don't even want to upload this now. I don't even want to edit and upload this. I'll be completely honest, because I think people are going to think I'm fucking crazy. But, like, I think the Qigong community is fucking crazy because they talk about this magical center. Ooh, the lower dantian. Ooh, you know, John Chang lighting shit on fire and zapping people through, you know, creating pressure in the lower dantian. And it's like, can we figure out what this shit really is? Like, please, can we stop, you know, what? It's such a silly word, but waffling around on forums, doing nothing, you know, producing nothing of value, just talking about Chinese words or Indian, you know, like Vedic words, which half of us have no idea what they are. Like, what is this shit? We have anatomy for a reason, you know, we figured out anatomy. We figured out all the organs in the body. And who knows, maybe there are points that are just completely spiritual, but even that we should be able to check and measure and test, you know, somehow with devices. But I just don't really... The way I see it is that it's both. It works together. The spiritual is how you stimulate things. You know, focusing is how we're spiritually stimulating. But the organs do work, and I've always had that sense of, like, why does urine therapy work? You know, if you've ever done that, you know, people drink their piss and they get over, like, well, I don't want to make too many medical claims, but let's just say it helps them, right? You know, or using urine as like a topical medicine. Why does that work? You know, maybe it's because it is the body's essence. It is the body's, like, you know, thing. And I'm not going to say that, I mean, the body does sometimes use the bladder as a detoxification system. I mean, it can use pretty much anything as a detox. You know, it can release toxins anyway. So it's still good to, like, in the morning probably just release everything, just flush it all out of you, and then maybe, I don't know, at night or whenever you do your practice, you just do this realizing that yes, your practice is causing you to build up. Like, if you're doing more yin practices, this really isn't, I mean, it's a good video of people doing yang practices to understand what things really are. That you're basically just sublimating your sexual energy, you know, like urine and other fluids and matters and all the crap you have at the bottom, you're sublimating that up. But, you know, what I'm saying is more for people who are trying to figure out the lower parts of the body. You know, as I said, I work physically. Like, I'm fucking exhausted most of the time. I've needed to figure out a way to get my stamina back, to get my health back, my body strong. I've just had to figure this stuff out, because it's either do or die. And alcohol, I don't want to make this video go on forever, but alcohol it produces a lot of piss, right? It opens up the bladder region. Alcohol is essentially a tonic, a gin tonic, you know, in this sense. So I don't drink alcohol, but if you want to like use something to understand this whole process and this whole thing, alcohol, like that's why, you know, physical laborers will drink a lot of alcohol. They'll eat a lot of protein. Again, as I said, protein, amino acid, nitrogen, ammonia, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, that's about it. I'm gonna edit this. It's gonna take me like an hour. Whatever. It's probably important to get this video out, so hopefully you got something from this. Hopefully you figure this shit out for yourself, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But I can at least say, if I do this stuff, I basically have like infinite stamina and regeneration and a lot more you know, vitality and power and all this stuff, which I need for my life. Of course, if you want more mental ability, you'll get more of that, or if you're more social ability, you'll get more of that. You know, it's just you're transmuting your energy and essence into whatever. So of course, check the links in the description for social and commercial stuff, and have a nice day.